So a really powerful and frankly defiant message has just come out from Adiala jail. It's written by former Prime Minister Imran Khan, and let me tell you, it's not just another political statement. This is a full-on indictment of the current army chief, Asim Munir. Okay, let's break this down and see exactly what Khan is saying from behind bars.
Right off the bat, Khan frames this entire struggle in these huge, deeply religious and historical terms. I mean, he's invoking names like Yazid and the Pharaoh, icons of tyranny. But the key word here is shirk. You have to understand, in Islam, that is the one unforgivable sin, associating partners with God. So by using that word, he's elevating his fight from just politics to a sacred religious duty.
So here's the game plan for how we're going to unpack this. First, we'll dive into the direct personal shots context. Then we'll look at what he calls a full-blown assault on democracy. After that, we'll touch on the fallout for foreign policy and the economy, his claims about a moral decay in the nation, and we'll finish with his big call to action for all his supporters.
All right, first up, the personal indictment. You see, Khan doesn't frame this as just some political disagreement. No, he sees this as a deeply personal and almost historic struggle for power. He draws this really direct and pretty damning line between the current army chief, Asim Munir, and General Yahya Khan. Now, if you know your history, Yahya Khan was the military ruler in charge when Pakistan broke apart in 1971. So the accusation here is massive. Khan is saying that both men used the army not to protect the country, but to grab power for themselves, leading to absolute disaster. And this is where it gets intensely personal. He's claiming that the mistreatment he and his wife, Bushra Begum, are facing in prison isn't just random or systemic. He alleges it's being personally directed by Munir himself with one single objective: to break them, to make them submit. This personal battle, as Khan lays it out, is just one part of a much wider assault on the entire country. And that brings us to his second major point, the systematic dismantling of Pakistan's whole democratic system. So Khan basically outlines a three-step playbook he claims was used to strangle democracy. Step 1, stage what he calls the false flag of the May 9th protests, which was then used as the reason to just crush his party. Step 2, what he calls the shameless theft of the February 8th election. And the final move? Neuter the judiciary, so there are absolutely no checks left on their power. And the alleged result of these three steps? It's pretty profound. According to Khan's message, what you're left with is a Pakistan where democracy is basically on hold. He says human rights violations are through the roof, the courts and the media are totally muzzled, and freedom of the press? Gone. Wiped out. Now here's a crucial point. Khan argues that this internal power grab has had absolutely devastating consequences on the outside too. So let's look at what he says has happened to Pakistan's foreign policy and its economy. He flat out accuses Munir of deliberately torpedoing the relationship with Afghanistan. And why? Well, Khan alleges it's all a calculated game to stir up conflict so that Munir can present himself to Western powers as this indispensable warrior against terror, which of course would help secure his own power. And on the economic front, the picture Khan paints is just bleak. He claims that because of all the political chaos and the breakdown of the rule of law, foreign investment has completely vanished. It's hit a historic low that he describes with just two words: virtually zero. And believe it or not, he says it gets worse. He alleges that in just 3 short years, the national debt has doubled. Doubled. He calls it a quagmire that's trapping every single citizen and argues there's no way out of this economic mess without a legitimate government that actually has the people's support. Okay, this brings us to Khan's fourth major theme, and this one goes beyond politics or economics. He talks about what he sees as a fundamental crisis of character, a moral decay happening in the nation. I mean, just listen to the language he's using here. It is incredibly stark. He's not just talking about corruption. He is claiming a level of moral collapse and cruelty that he says you wouldn't even see in a war zone. And to back this claim up, he gives these really specific and deeply disturbing examples. He talks about women being dragged through the streets, children being harassed, the elderly being disrespected, and he makes a special point to mention the treatment of his own female relatives who aren't even in politics, calling it something totally unprecedented in the country's history. So, after laying out this entire case, this massive indictment, Khan's message pivots. It goes from diagnosing the problem to prescribing a solution. And he issues a direct call for opposition, right from his jail cell.
And this right here, this is the core of his command to his followers. He's saying, look, the time for trying to use the courts and legal channels is over. It's gotten us nowhere. The only way forward, he argues, is real opposition. And he lays down a pretty stark choice. Stand up and fight, or you'll become politically irrelevant. Dig your own grave.
And this isn't just some vague call to resist. Khan gives a very specific, actionable target. He tells everyone to focus their energy on a huge rally that's planned for Peshawar. He's basically urging the whole nation to pour into that event and make their voices heard against what he's calling tyranny.
So we're left with this, a message from a prison cell that's part personal grievance, part political manifesto, and part a call to revolution. And it really forces you to ask a pretty big question. In a situation like this, what does real opposition even look like? And what part will it play in shaping a nation's future?